Hello all, and welcome to this evening's beer review, which I am going to dub the Three Beer Problem beer review. You know why? I've been reading this particular novel right now. It's really good, actually. Very Chinese, though. Very, very Chinese, but really good. If you're into science fiction, I recommend it. Today is fairly gray. It's storming apart on other islands of the state, but it's not storming here. It's gray. It looks like it's going to cloud burst any minute, but it hasn't cloud burst. And it's been like that for hours, so you're just kind of waiting for it to start downpour. And what is it that we are going to be reviewing today? Well, we are going to be continuing our exploration of the Brewery van Steenberge Golden, well, not Golden Draak, because they're not all Golden Draak, but this particular one is the Imperial Stout. This is 12.0 ABV, so pretty heavy here. And I took it out to let it warm up a little bit. And, yeah, so let's read the back now, shall we? Golden Draak Imperial Stout is a limited edition brew from the noble line of Golden Draak beers. A beer characterized by its deep, dark color and dry, delicious bitterness. Let's see here. Black on dark red is not easily read. See here, I'm trying to see what the serving temperature is, but I can't see it. Because my eyes are getting old. As are every single part of me. I already have my water here. I'm going to be pouring it into the snifter. And hopefully I let this out just long enough so it's not too cold, not too warm. It's been about 15 minutes thereabouts. Boy, my camera's up pretty high. Okay. Don't want to get those dregs in there. Yep. Okay. Yeah, no light's getting through. I can put it right up to the light bulb and basically no light is getting through at all. There is a beige to light brown head, about maybe a little under a finger's worth here. Ooh! The brown bread. Prunes. Dark stone fruit, you know, like cherries, plums. Oddly, not very many coffee-like notes, but I'll get more into that later. Milk chocolate, fine milk chocolate. And the head is more or less diminished already. But the bouquet is sort of remaining. It feels a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit on the cold side right now. Yeah. I'm not really getting any coffee notes at all. Or mocha notes, or anything that's evocative of coffee, which is a first for an Imperial Stout for me. But definitely has a lot of those chocolate notes. fruity notes, well, dark fruity notes, and, you know, sort of a brown bread kind of malt note there. And on the overall, kind of sweet smelling in the bouquet. Okay, onto the palate now, shall we? That is surprisingly well carbonated. Yeah, pretty prickly carbonation up front, which is not something you expect either from an Imperial Stout or any real beer that's at 12.0 ABV. The other interesting thing is, this is 12.0 ABV, one of the heaviest beers I have reviewed. And part of it might be that it's just a little bit too cold right now, but I am not getting much alcohol heat off of this right now at all. Semi-sweet chocolate notes in the mids are very big, very boomy. Excuse me, I'm still getting over that sore throat thing. Some It's some sort of pool tendon in my throat or something like that. Top note, while the bouquet didn't have very much roast notes, the top note, while in the mouth, has some roast notes there. As is in the long finish, there's some roast notes there, and a touch of hop bitterness. Up front, partially obscured by the carbonation, is fruity notes. You know, they don't particularly stand out as any particular dark stone fruit, but you know it's there. Whereas it stood out a little bit more in the bouquet. What is interesting is that it's I would say for an imperial stout, yeah, it has those sort of imperial stout residual sugars in the front to mids, but finish is fairly dry. It really goes very dry in the finish. Yeah, it's definitely opening up much more now. Holding it like this to get it to warm up a little bit faster. The benefits of a snifter. While it is chewy, I would say there really isn't an oily aspect to the mouthfeel, you know? And also, again, I'd like to reiterate, I'm not getting really almost any alcohol heat or, you know, alcohol-like notes here. You know, even the fine ones, it kind of comes across as a fairly rich and decadent stout, uh, but not as high ABV as, you know, it lists on the bottle. Maybe it is now as it warms up just a slight bit. Yeah, just a slight bit, just slightly evocative of dark rum, slightly. Actually, dark brandy. Yeah, there's the alcohol. It's starting to show up in the top note first, as opposed to on the palate. Yeah, so definitely like a semi-sweet chocolate bar with maybe like dried cherries inside of it, kind of evocative of that, and front to mids. Then it goes really roasty in the finish. Well, not really roasty, but somewhat roasty in the finish. Um, some slight bittering hops there. That's the other thing too. Usually, one of my main weaknesses in tasting is that I have difficult when, you know, we have dark malts in a beer. I often have difficulty discerning the dimensionality of the hops. Here, no problem. I'm getting the hop bitterness in the finish. It's not strong, but I can send it. You know, I can taste it there. You know, slightly herbaceous and earthy hopping. Top note in the mids, brown bread. That's where that shows up there, showing up there. Yeah, getting fairly warm now. Might want to go and start switching it to like this format. Carbonation is still somewhat prickly, but not as much. So, interesting note about this particular Imperial Stout. I don't really have any confirmation of this from the website or, you know, any sort of official source, but many of their sort of reviews kind of state that this is done with sort of an Imperial Stout's malt bill and hopping, but using Van Steenberge's uh, Belgian house yeast. And while I have no confirmation, it definitely seems that way. Um, you know, just from how different it is from other imperial stouts I've had before. While interestingly, well, some say it does. It seems it's a hybrid style per se. I think it still falls well within the style guidelines for an imperial stout. It just takes it into different directions, and I'm all for it because, you know, you don't see me review very many stouts because, again, one, Uh, the roasted malt notes that are evocative of coffee tend to predominate whatever it is I am drinking and overshadow it. And that's just my personal palate. Sorry, there's a fly in the room. It's not showing up on the camera, at least. So this is pretty enjoyable for me. You know, it 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 doesn't have the note that I enjoy least in the style, which is black coffee. While it has the other predominant note in Imperial Stouts that I quite enjoy, which is semi-sweet to milk chocolate. This one, I would say it's more on the nose, more evocative of milk chocolate. Actually, on the palate, more evocative of semi-sweet chocolate. And of course, a lot of fruity notes there, which I would say, yes, this has a bit more dark fruit, dark stone fruit to it than most Imperial Stouts do. Uh, but it is a flavor note you notice in most Imperial Stouts. It's just like one that's on a lower tier. This one's pretty up there in the flavor notes, right underneath the milk chocolate note. And of course, to keep it from getting anywhere near cloying, uh, it finishes fairly dry, despite the sweetness in the front to mids. All in all, this is a pretty interesting beer. I would suggest trying it if this is up your alley. I know Imperial Stouts, while not polarizing, are a beer that some people don't particularly go after. But I would say even if Imperial Stouts are not quite your cup of tea, you might want to try this one anyway if Belgians are your cup of tea, since it kind of shades in that general direction. So that leaves pretty much two more beers from this box set to review. I'm looking forward to it, really. Yeah. And I guess I'm going to go and watch some YouTube videos now, or maybe play video games. Who knows? The world is my oyster on my day off. An impoverished and depressing oyster, but still a wonderful oyster indeed. Oh, lordy. And that, folks, is your beer review for this afternoon. Cheers.